Malik Johnson's day started like any other. The strong, lazy Miami sun filtered through the blinds of his apartment, illuminating the living room with the same precision he applied to all areas of his life. At 28, Malik was a software engineer, a prodigy who had traded the stressful routine of a large corporation for the flexibility of self-employment. He was the personification of the American dream, but with the disadvantage that, in the United States, the color of his skin was, for some, a disadvantage in itself. He was wearing a gray polo shirt, dark jeans, and leather shoes. On his wrist, a discreet watch. In his hand, the keys to his Tesla. He was headed to a downtown cafe, his morning ritual every Saturday. It was a quiet day off, and he was only a few blocks from home when the unpredictable happened. A police car, without its siren on, screeched to a halt next to his car. The tires squealed on the hot asphalt. 2 officers got out. The first, a tall, blond man with a sturdy mustache, Officer Thompson. The second, a young man with a tense expression, Officer Miller. Without any warning, Thompson gestured for him to pull over. Malik obeyed, his heart beginning to pound with a familiar, cold feeling of unease. He knew what it meant to be pulled over by police for no apparent reason. He kept his hands on the steering wheel, visible. "License and registration, please," Thompson said, his voice monotonous and unemotional. Malik handed over the documents without hesitation. His actions were slow and deliberate, a lesson learned since adolescence that any sudden movement could be misinterpreted. He explained that he was going to a cafe, but his justification was ignored. Thompson examined him, his eyes scanning the car's interior and then Malik's clothes. "Please step out of the vehicle," Thompson ordered. Malik obeyed. The morning sun seemed less warm now. He felt a shiver run down his spine. He had been taught never to argue, never to resist. He got out, keeping his hands up. "Get on the ground," Thompson said. The request caught him by surprise. What was happening? He hadn't done anything wrong. His car was new. His documents were in order. Indignation began to boil inside him, but obedience took over. He lay down on the hot asphalt, Miller's eyes fixed on him, as if they were expecting any sign of resistance. Thompson approached. "You're being detained on suspicion of armed robbery at a gas station last night." The accusation hit him like a punch. Malik had been at home the night before, working on a software project. He tried to explain, but the words seemed to dissolve into the air. It was then that he felt the cold metal on his hands. The handcuffs were tightened with force, and the sound of the click echoed in his ear. He felt the humiliation, the injustice. As he was led to the squad car, anger finally overcame fear. He was a free man, innocent, and was being treated like a criminal. With the handcuffs tightening around his wrists, he remembered one single thing that could change that situation. He remembered his cousin. In the back of the squad car, Malik's humiliation turned into a cold, resolute rage. He looked at the street that, moments before, had seemed so safe. Now, through the car's grid, it looked like a distant world, a world that didn't see him for who he really was. The officers, Thompson and Miller, didn't seem to care about his indignation. They saw him not as a successful engineer, but as a stereotype, a potential thief. They arrived at the police station. The sound of the car doors slamming shut sounded like a verdict. Inside, the smell of old coffee and disinfectant was a perfume of bureaucracy and depersonalization. While Thompson filled out the paperwork, Miller took him to a cell. Malik sat on a concrete bench, his head bowed, feeling the weight of injustice. It was then that an older officer, Sergeant Davis, entered the room. He had been on the force for over 20 years and had a sharp intuition. He looked at Malik. The man didn't look like a criminal. His clothes, his composure. Davis knew that many of his colleagues often acted first and asked questions later. "What's your name?" Davis asked, his voice calm. Malik raised his head. Malik Johnson. Davis looked at the incident report. Suspect of robbery. Well, he doesn't look the type. Thompson, what evidence do you have? Thompson turned, annoyed at being questioned. The suspect's description was a tall, black man, about 30 years old, with an imported car. He fits the profile. The answer made Malik lift his head in surprise. The anger returned. An imported car? My dark skin? Is that all you have? I was at home, working. Davis approached, his expression hardening. Look, don't make a scene, kid. It was at that moment that Malik felt the need to turn the tables. The indignation was too great. His voice trembled, but not with fear, with determination. I'm not making a scene. I'm being treated like a criminal because of the color of my skin and my car. I have rights. Thompson laughed. Oh, rights. What are you going to do? Call your mommy? Malik looked at Thompson, his gaze cold and penetrating. No, I'm going to call my cousin. I believe he has your number. And who would your cousin be? Miller asked with disdain. Malik approached the cell bars. Thompson and Miller's eyes fixed on him, curious. This was the moment. My cousin, Malik said, with a tone of voice that allowed no argument, is Brian Williams, and he's the U.S. Attorney General. The room fell silent. Thompson's laughter died in his throat. Miller's expression dissolved into disbelief. Sergeant Davis, who had stepped away to observe, widened his eyes. The name Brian Williams wasn't just a name. It was the name of the most powerful man in the country's judicial system. The silence was broken by Thompson, who hurried to grab the phone. He called the Attorney General, his heart pounding in his chest. On the other end of the line, a deep, calm voice. Attorney General Williams, this is Officer Thompson. We have a man here who says he's your cousin. Brian Williams's voice was that of a man accustomed to power and authority. Put him on the phone. Thompson, his hand shaking, handed the phone to Malik. Malik put the phone to his ear. Cousin? It's me, Malik. Malik? What's going on? Brian asked, the calm in his voice tinged with concern. They handcuffed me on the street, cousin. They said I'm a suspect in a robbery. I was in my car, going to the cafe. They detained me because I'm a black man with an expensive car. Brian's voice on the line was cold, icy. Put the sergeant on the phone. Now! Thompson took the phone back. He turned to Davis, but the sergeant ignored him. Thompson's dignity, which had been unshakable before, began to crumble. He put the phone to his ear and listened. Brian's voice was like thunder, silent but destructive. He said a few words, and Thompson turned pale. He hung up the phone and looked at Malik. The air around him was filled with a silent terror. Thompson turned to Sergeant Davis, his voice trembling. He said to release him. Immediately, Sergeant Davis nodded, his expression grim. I'll call the supervisor. And you and Miller, we're going to have a talk in my office. As of now, you two are suspended. Thompson and Miller stood paralyzed. Their authority, which had been absolute before, was destroyed in a matter of minutes. They knew they weren't just suspended. Their careers were over. The handcuffs were removed with a metallic sound. Malik's skin was red. He stood up, the anger giving way to a cold relief. He took his documents back. As he was leaving, Sergeant Davis approached him. I'm sorry about this, he said, with sincerity. This isn't who we are. Some of us. Malik looked him in the eyes. He saw the shame in Davis's expression. He nodded. I know, but some of you are. He left the station, and the Miami sun, which had seemed so distant, now warmed him. He looked up at the sky, at the sun. He felt victorious, but the victory had a bitter taste. He had overcome injustice, but only because he had a powerful cousin. What if he didn't? What if he was just Malik Johnson, the software engineer, without an attorney general in the family? Malik Johnson's story was not told in the newspapers, but echoed in the police station. For the officers, he was a man who made them face their own injustices. For Malik, He was a painful reminder that the world still saw him as the color of his skin and not the strength of his character. The anger and humiliation were mixed with gratitude. The system was flawed, but his family's love was his true justice. And that morning, it was what truly set him free.